want to start?
What country were we in?
Australia.
Good day.
Good day,
Mrs.
mate.
F1.
Did you really just ask me what country the race was in?
I forgot.
How could you forget? We were literally up
Good
for
day, mate.
20 plus hours for 2 days straight.
I wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't. Let the record show that I, Brianna, Mrs. F1, stayed up to watch qualifying till 3 a.m., stayed up to watch the race until 4 a.m. By the time it was all said and done, you were sleeping.
Yeah, no, I'm all right.
You were literally sleeping.
I'll watch highlights in the morning. You know?
Just admitting he has a podcast about Formula One in which he never watched anything.
I'm not staying up till 1 a.m.
It's called Devotion. I don't know if you'll get any of that, but it's
Nope.
fine.
Nope.
The Down Under delivered.
It was a pretty epic race.
It was epic. It's going to be hard to beat. That's for sure.
I think F1 tweeted it was the first ever 3 red flag race.
Really?
I thought that too. I was like, that can't be the case.
I don't think that's the case.
That's what I thought, but no. According to F1, it was the first ever 3 red flag.
You said on Twitter?
Yeah.
Was it like a real official F1 account or
Yes,
was it like a fake?
No, it was real.
Because you can do fake official accounts on Twitter.
Maybe I misread it and it was the first 3 red flags in Melbourne. I don't know. But,
maybe.
Yeah, it was wild, hey?
It was pretty crazy. And honestly, you guys are the real ones. If you stayed up all night, if you're a US fan,
Yep.
If you were on the West Coast, it wasn't that bad. It was just a later race, which honestly I would prefer. The race was probably done around 1 o'clock your time. For us, the race was done at 4 a.m. And can we just take a brief moment? There's been so much chaos in our lives over the past 24 hours. Obviously, we've been watching qualifying live. I've been watching the race live. So my sleep schedule's all over the place. So I go to bed at 4 a.m. last night or this morning.
Yes.
I sleep until about 10 o'clock-ish.
Yes.
And then I go to take our dog out. I come back to find the hallway of our apartment building completely just with smoke filled. There are firefighters in the hallway. We had to evacuate. So we had to sit outside. I haven't even had a cup of coffee yet at this point. I am dying. I'm sitting outside. Thank God it's nice out today. But we had all that debacle.
Yes.
And now here we are.
Yes.
It's crazy. I feel like my life has been very reflective of the way this race went.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into it because there's so much to cover. And I'm already going to apologize to all of you. If we missed something that happened, don't kill us. There was so much going on. It's hard to even remember. And I was half awake. So I know you wanted to talk and we got to watch F2
Yes.
a little bit this week.
Yes.
There was also equally just as much chaos in the F2.
Madness. F2 and F3, madness.
What was in the air in Melbourne? Honestly.
Well, in terms of F2 and F3, they haven't raced there in a long time. So a lot of those kids, they're very unfamiliar with Melbourne.
Right.
And I think that contributed to it. But yeah, like you said, it wasn't just those F2 and F3. It wasn't the feeder series. We had some big crashes that happened, and even in F1 with Alex, and we'll get into that later. But there was a big one in F2 with Roy Nissany, and then
some real tank slappers.
And who was it? Isaac Hadjar's suspension failed and almost hit Roy Nissany's car. That was terrifying. Had his suspension failed 100 feet before where it failed, he would have went head on into a
sitting duck.
Car that had just crashed the lap before.
Yeah,
which
literally
is terrifying.
Inches away.
Not to mention that there was probably marshals in the general vicinity trying to clean up that car. Had he hit a marshal, that would have been awful. So thank God that didn't happen. But yeah, F2, F3, they saw a lot of crashes. And then in F1, for some reason, I don't know if it was tire temp or, issues with braking. But, there was a lot of mistakes.
I mean, we already know that Melbourne itself, that track at Albert Park, is not the easiest track on the calendar.
It's a tough track. It's a really tough track.
It's a relatively tough track. So, and I I think everyone knows that and is super aware of it. But we also had some really just all over weather that happened this weekend. It kind of really reminded me of Canada last year, how they saw like every possible weather scenario they saw.
Right.
So I think that played into the chaos that we saw in the race in F1 and even in F2 in qualifying. They had rain.
Downpouring.
And they were just
wets.
sliding across the tarmac like ice skates. Like it was crazy. So yeah, F2 was super interesting, but really great results for Dams, the team Dams.
Yes.
Owasa brought it home again. First repeat podium winner, whatever, this season. So great for him. If I was Yuki Tsunoda, I'd be a little nervous about that. He is, Owasa is a Red Bull junior driver. And so far he's looking great.
He's a very good driver.
Yeah. And we had Charles Leclerc's little brother on the podium in third. Right. And that is his first podium in F2.
He was gifted a podium. He had a great drive, but Dennis Hauger was just rear-ended 2 laps before the end of the race, and he was sitting in third, and basically Arthur inherited that podium position. But yeah, like you said, the Dams team had first and third place. That's a great outing for an F2 team that, where all the cars are standardized. That's a lot tougher to put both of your cars on the podium.
Yeah, and definitely I think for Arthur too, like that pressure of your first podium in F2, I think there's always a lot of pressure in those feeder series to immediately start performing.
Sure.
Even though I don't think anybody expects you to be amazing right off the gate, right out the gate.
I think it depends who it is. Right? No offense to Arthur, but he's not as highly regarded as his older brother, right? I mean, Charles won F3, won F2 in successive years. Arthur spent a few years in F3, didn't win, but was competitive, and was able to get a seat in F2. But I don't think he has the same expectations as his brother, so it's a little different.
Not as much hype around Arthur.
Exactly. Still a great driver, but Charles is generational, right? That there's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
But Théo Pourchaire, who was the odds-on favorite at the beginning of the year, finished second. He split the 2 Dams cars, but he's not having the year that everybody thought he was going to have. It's his 4th full year in F2. He should be demolishing everybody. I don't know why he isn't.
Yeah, you mentioned that when we were watching the podium ceremony for F2, you were like, man, I feel like Théo Pourchaire is under-delivering. Like
he in the first race in Bahrain, he beat everybody in qualifying by a half a second.
Yeah. And
when that happened, I was like, okay, this is just going to be a runaway year. And it should be because, again, he's very experienced. He's been highly touted since, he joined Sauber's driving academy. And for some reason, after that great start in Bahrain, he hasn't really done much to show that he deserves to have an F1 seat, let alone, win F2.
Right. Yeah, definitely a little underwhelming, but it is still the very beginnings of this season. Yep. So lots to come from that. Again, we always encourage everybody, if you don't watch F2, check it out.
It's madness. How epic was watching that
F2 it was.
Race. It's so just constant entertainment.
Oh yeah, because the cars are all standardized, and so you don't have a lot of those huge gaps a lot of the times, especially, I mean, you may have it up front a little bit, but and
these kids will dive bomb, like they're more willing to take risks. They'll make these epic attempts at overtakes and sometimes fail and spin off, and just, I feel like there's constantly something going on during those races.
For me, something that makes me laugh about like F2 radio is these kids just seem like so dramatic.
Yeah, Isaac Hadjar was livid.
Oh my god, yeah, the radio was borderline. I was like, why are you even playing this? Because he's literally cursing. I can't even hear what he's saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find it funny. I feel like they're a little bit dramatic in F2 with their onboard radio, but whatever.
I mean, Yuki is 10 times worse in my opinion.
True.
But,
Anyways, but yeah, really good racing in F2, so everyone go check it out. Let's get into just like this race. I feel like has been so anticipated, mainly because everyone knew Daniel Ricciardo would be back in the paddock. I feel like let's just call it the Daniel Ricciardo Grand Prix.
Except not really, because he didn't even participate.
Well, yeah, but everyone was. obviously he's not participating, but everyone was just excited to see him back in the paddock, in front of the cameras, with the team. I feel like he has a huge fan base, and we haven't seen him like on the F1 pit wall with the F1 team except for the car launch. So this is the first time Daniel Ricciardo was really seen in the F1 paddock for the 2023 season. I feel like I have mixed emotions about his situation at the moment. I know he's said he's happy where he is and he's content where he is at the moment, but I just feel like Red Bull's really milking him for all he's worth.
Well, if this is his first race that he's been to, but I mean, for me, it seemed like it was more, the attention was more geared towards Oscar. That's what I thought.
He definitely like had a lot.
He's a very hyped rookie. He's an Aussie. He's from the area. They're like I thought that it was more the Piastri Grand Prix than the Ricciardo Grand Prix.
I disagree. I saw more content around Daniel Ricciardo being back than I did around this being Oscar Piastri's first race in home race.
He scored points.
He did. But it was good to see Danny Rick. Nevertheless, I was happy to see him. It's just kind of weird seeing him in this spot of like, yes, he is a development driver for Red Bull or reserve driver, but we see a lot of drivers that are reserve driver. Mick Schumacher, for example. Like, I feel like Red Bull is like, yeah, you're kind of our reserve guy, but like, we're mostly going to use you for a PR thing.
What I don't understand is that Ricciardo was notorious for not knowing how to develop a car. Mm-hmm. So why... And this just proves your point, in my opinion, is that he wasn't really hired for the car development aspect, probably more the marketing aspect, because he's the most marketable guy in F1.
Yeah.
Besides Lewis, maybe. But
Red Bull isn't stupid. They know he has a huge fan base and that they could market him and use him not just in an F1 sense, but he's going to go around to a bunch of other Red Bull events around the country and draw that fan base and crowd to them. So they weren't dumb with that move. Obviously, Daniel Ricciardo is a good driver. So like if they need him, they know, and he has history with that team. So they know he can get in a car and drive. There's no question about that. But I really think they were like, saw a huge opportunity when it came to marketing. Yeah,
I agree.
I don't hate them for it, but it just kind of makes me sad a little bit. It's just kind of like an old dog. Like they can't run and play with the young dogs anymore. So they just kind of sit there on the side and watch. And like, that's kind of how it feels to me. I know that seems sad and calling Daniel Ricciardo an old dog, but...
I mean, Fernando's 42 and he's still kicking. So,
I know, but those were the vibes. Like seeing him on the pit wall, just like looking up at the screens. I was like, oh.
At the end of the day, I want the best drivers driving around because that's the best entertainment value.
Yeah.
And let's be real, Oscar's a better driver than Danny Rick. I mean, Oscar's keeping that car close to Lando. Mm-hmm. I mean, Lando's finished better than him, I think, in all the races except he DNF'd maybe. I don't remember, but
he DNF'd in the first race.
Yeah. So,
No, sorry, second race, not first race.
Yes, I think that it's pretty clear that Oscar is a better driver. So, yeah, it's sad that Danny Rick's not driving, but we have a new Aussie now.
Yeah, the new Aussie. Anyways, before we get into the chaos that was the Australian Grand Prix main event race, qualifying, I would say a lot of unexpected things happened in qualifying for me, for sure. One, we have to talk about Alex Albon. Mm-hmm. Holy crap. First of all, I think that's his best qualifying result ever.
That can't be true.
With the Williams. Sorry, with the Williams.
With the Red Bull, he definitely did better than that. But
his straight line speed was unbelievable.
Williams has a fast car.
Yeah, it was really encouraging to see, and also made me so happy for Alex. But it was so quick. I just kept watching him, and I was like, he'll probably be out in Q2, and he held it in there. And then Q3 put in a great performance, and like, I don't know if that's any indication of maybe his development as a driver, but I think it's more an indication of like how that car is really quickly coming back into play for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Logan's struggling in that car.
But he's also a rookie.
Yeah, that's true. But I do believe that Alex is he's probably a top 6'8" driver in the world right now. I think that Red Bull ruined him, and I think that Darth Helmet is at fault for this. But I think Alex is a phenomenal. Like, look at how good Pierre and Alex are doing outside of Red Bull.
Right.
That just goes to show you, like, A, that they're great drivers.
Yeah.
And that Red Bull, it's not the driver's fault that they didn't succeed, is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's 100% Red Bull's fault that both Pierre and Alex didn't succeed.
Yeah.
And Checo is succeeding because he is not a Red Bull junior. He's an old driver who
he hasn't been through that system.
Well, and he knows that he's not first fiddle. Like, he's not. He's always going to be the backup.
Right.
And he can live with that. Whereas a young 22-year-old who's trying to get into the sport, like, can't handle the fact that all the effort is going to the other side of the garage.
Right.
But now that they're on teams that they're actually treated like good drivers, look at them.
Yeah.
Like you said, Alex should not have drugged that car into Q3.
Right.
It's a quick car, but he should not, like, that is the biggest, I would say, overperformance of what the car was expected to be of anybody on the grid.
I don't think anyone was expecting them to be fast in Australia. I don't think so.
It's known that they have straight line speed. They're one of the fastest cars through the speed traps, but I mean, everybody knows that you win races in the corners, right? That's where you make up the most time, and they're not great there.
Yeah.
But yeah, phenomenal qualifying from Alex.
Yeah. 8th, which is even more impressive. He wasn't like at the very bottom in Q3. He 8th, which is impressive.
And then on the other hand, Checo didn't even make it one lap around in qualifying before he beached his car.
Yeah, yikes. Yeah, I mean, it was a massive lockup on that front right tire.
And he was very upset on the radio
really
because
pissed.
Apparently this was an issue that he had in FP3 that was supposed to be fixed and wasn't.
Now, you just said a minute ago, like, you think the reason Checo works so well in that second seat at Red Bull is because he knows he's the second driver and, like, he will always be the second driver. I think for the first year, very much a case. I think he was totally content with sitting there and being second fiddle. This year, I'm starting to see more signs of him probably not being as content with that. One, with what we saw in the last race, starting to question why he's getting different information than Max is, kind of being like, that's weird.
Oh, I think he's always questioned that. I mean, look at what happened to Checo in Brazil when he let Max pass and then Max refused to let him overtake again.
Right.
He was livid, but at the end of the day, he's not going to let that bother him because he's not surprised at that treatment. It's like, yeah, it's annoying, and he'll voice his concern, but like, I'm sure he knows nothing is changing.
I think
nothing will change.
I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this situation. I think it was very much a honeymoon stage with him and Red Bull in the beginning because he was performing so well. And like, him and Max were close, but there weren't a lot of instances where they were fighting each other as often as they are now. We saw that happen in Brazil. That was probably one of the first biggest examples of the two having to fight each other. And I think when that happened to him, it clicked in his mind. Okay, yeah, I've always kind of known that Max is number one in the back of my mind, but it's not just the team that's gonna favor him. It's him. Like Max is totally okay with ignoring team orders.
Oh yeah.
There is no question about that.
Oh, so your point is Checo's just not going to listen to team orders anymore.
Right. I think Checo is like.
Oh, I don't disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
I think I would do the same thing if I were Checo.
Yeah. And I think that's what we started to see like in that last race with him starting to like ask all these little questions, and he's like putting things together in his mind like, okay, did you purposely not tell me that?
He has to become his own strategist because he knows that the strategy that he's been getting is this is a safety, so in case something happens to Max.
But like the reason I bring that up is because that radio message where he in qualifying when he put that car into the wall, obviously very angry, and almost I got like this vibe of like, I told you this need to be fixed, why didn't you fix it?
Yeah, but you hear that from other drivers. I don't think that's a Red Bull issue. I think I all last year Lewis was like, my car doesn't do XYZ, why haven't you fixed this yet, yada yada yada. it's a little different because Red Bull has a great car, but at the end of the day, I totally agree with you in that he will start ignoring team orders.
Yeah.
And he should.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't just accept the fact that they're just going to push Max and let's be real, Max is going to win the championship this year.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter what they do. Max is going to win the championship. So Checo's just got to be like, I'm on my own.
Yeah, but
I need to prove myself.
Yeah, but if there's anybody that can challenge him or come close, it's him.
I mean, the only because he's in the same car.
Yes.
But like, he's not talented enough.
Right, but he could take advantage of a lot of these weird situations like he was looking to do in the last race when Max just bad luck and had started further back. And this is where Checo, I think, is like thinking like, all right, I need to take advantage of every single mistake that happens there or bad luck because I could possibly win this if I play my cards right.
I mean, he would have done that regardless, right? I mean, these are competitors. These are the top 20 drivers in the world. Of course they're thinking that way no matter what. But at the end of the day, he's not talented enough to... the only way he would win the championship this year is, like you said, bad luck. Yeah. If Max has 10 DNFs, then Checo has a chance. But all things standardized, Max is going to run away with it.
Yeah, I guess so. Moral of the story is, if you're the second seat in Red Bull, you have to watch your back.
Yeah, which is why...
no one's got
Actually, this is a good transition because that second seat should be filled with Charles as long as what happened to him today continues to happen to him.
Okay, well, we're not even in the race yet. We're not even on qualifying yet. So let's quickly...
Well, but even qualifying, he qualified P7, Charles. That's terrible.
Yeah,
that is
right above Alexander Albon.
That is not great. Stroll out-qualified him. His teammate out-qualified him.
Right.
Like, that's not a good result for Charles personally. That's not a Ferrari issue. That's a Charles issue. But... he also doesn't have a great car. So, yes, it is partially a Ferrari issue, but then he gets punted because he's so far back.
Whoa. You're getting too far ahead.
Well, I'm just fired up because I want Charles.
You're so angry. Okay, let's really quickly just talk about some other highlights of qualifying. Mercedes, wow. Didn't expect them 2-3.
Yeah.
Honestly surprised. George Russell.
I think they were surprised.
Yeah, I think they were. George Russell, again, just outperforming Lewis Hamilton just by a little bit there.
Yep.
But great performance from them. Part of me is like sitting here after this weekend going, were you guys, and I said this in a podcast, like our podcast a couple of weeks ago, it's like crying wolf. They're like, oh my God, we're so horrible. Our car is horrible. We're not going to fight for championships this year. Oh, P2, P3.
Well, they were still off Max's time by like 4/10 or whatever it was.
I know, but still, like, it just was like, wow, that was a big leap. Like, you guys have been sitting over here acting like you've cut your left side of your body off. But here you are, 3 races in, and you're already seeing results. So anyways.
But George and Max were the only ones to set a sub 117 time in qualifying, which I thought was very impressive on George's part. And we had we discussed with some UK friends a couple months back that they're big Lewis Hamilton fans, and they were like, oh, he'll recover, and I remember saying to them, I was like, I think George is a better driver now, and they were like, no, when it comes down to winning championships, like, George doesn't have that experience, and they're right, but man, I don't know, individual rate, like when you're seeing these quali results and I think George is as good as Lewis right now.
I think George is just a more versatile driver at the moment. Lewis hasn't really had to deal with any adversity for a while now. Mm-hmm. George is used to dealing with adversity.
That's very true.
And pulling and extracting as much out of a car that doesn't have it. Yeah. And Lewis hasn't had to do that for so long. So I think it's more like we're seeing Lewis Hamilton relearn what it's like to not just run away with everything. And I think that's why we're seeing George outperform Lewis. I think obviously Lewis, one, if not the best driver in Formula One history. Ever. So to say George is like better, George is better than Lewis right now.
I was going to say, Lewis isn't in his prime, right? So
right.
I think currently, if that Mercedes was the best car on the grid, if I had to bet on who would win a championship, I would bet George. Yeah,
I agree with you. But just honestly shocking performance from them in qualifying.
Yeah, great.
And I was excited. It was great stuff. And then another surprise. Nico Hulkenberg.
Nico Hulkenberg. Yeah, what was he, P9?
P10.
P10. Yeah, made a Q3.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but I think he's out-qualified Kevin every single race so far.
I think you're right.
That's alarming for Kevin because Kevin came in and pretty much beat Mick up pretty good last year, and now a guy who's been sitting out for 2 years is beating him up pretty good. I did not expect this.
I didn't either. I really thought we would see K-Mag at least doing a bit better than Nico Hulkenberg.
Yeah.
So, but it was really exciting.
Good for him. And that Haas is fast in a straight line too.
Yeah, the Haas is pretty quick too, and I think this is just like another great result for them. Yeah. And I know a lot of people on the internet were very excited about it. Okay, qualifying over. Let's get into the race. Honestly, I woke up this morning and I was like, did that actually happen or did I dream it happened?
Or nightmare in your case.
Yeah, let's just rip that Band-Aid off right away. Charles Leclerc getting punted off the track into turn 1 by none other than the Prince himself. Lance Stroll. Lance, I was just starting to like you. Like, I really was just starting to like you. And then you go ahead and punt Charles Leclerc off the track in turn 1. Done.
It wasn't his fault. The FIA decided it wasn't his fault.
I know.
I don't think it was. He couldn't go anywhere. It was just, again, for me, that's more of an issue of Charles shouldn't have been that far back in the first place. Had he qualified better, that problem wouldn't have existed. So at the end of the day, I don't like Lance isn't at fault. He has nowhere to go. Charles tries to go around the outside, probably because he's like, well, I qualified 7th. I need to do some risky stuff to kind of claw my way back. Yeah. And then he ends up beached.
Yeah. I feel so bad for him. Like, honestly.
What does he have right now? 6 points?
God, I don't even know. I don't want to look. I'm so scared to look right now. Right now, in the driver's standings, Charles Leclerc is sitting 10th.
With 6 points.
Tied with Nico Hulkenberg. Oh, God. Jeez.
Does he have 6 points? Am I right?
Yeah, 6 points.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
It's over.
and this is why he needs to leave. He needs to leave Ferrari.
I really think... I don't know. I think the reason I feel so bad, and I don't want to stick on this so long because I feel like this is something we talk about every single race. It's just like it looked so good for him last year. Like in the beginning of the season, they actually had the car under them that could maybe not possibly win the championship, but at least be up there with, And now we don't even see them in a car he can compete in. And it's just these strings of bad luck. The first race he DNFs due to a technical issue. And then just wrong place, wrong time because his car isn't performing. He's further down in the line. Like, oh God, it's just like, and when you see someone with that much talent and that stuff happening to them, it really does pain you.
And it reminds me of, it's not as bad, but you just talked about it a couple minutes ago. Reminds me of when George was at Williams. Because you just saw the talent that he had, and you were like, just get him a car.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I feel about Charles. Like, man, I truly believe that the only person in the world that could give Max a run for his money would be Charles in the same car.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else, I don't care if it's Lewis, George, I don't think anybody could beat Max except Charles.
Yeah.
If he were in the same machinery.
Yeah.
So it's just so frustrating to, like you said, to watch him struggle, watch the team make bad decisions.
Well, so far it hasn't been necessarily the teams. No, this year it's been okay, but like it's just like this bad luck situation. Like 2 times now. Like I feel like I've barely seen the kid on track. Yeah. So it's just painful to see Charles Leclerc. Sorry, like man, my heart goes out to that kid but his contract is up at the end of 2024. So I really feel like if this season things will start improving for him, I don't know what he's going to do. I know he has so much loyalty, and he has said time and time again, I want to win a championship, and I want to win it with Ferrari, which is like noble, and like that's a great dream to have. But I feel like he's going to start looking at this season and being like, okay, that's what I want, but is it going to be possible?
Yeah, and we talked about this last week.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, he needs to look out for himself.
Right.
But
We'll talk about the other Ferrari later, because I feel like that is encompassed in a lot of other things.
yeah.
But the Ferraris just didn't look quick overall, qualifying or the race.
Third or fourth fastest car.
Race-wise, though, I don't even know where to start, guys, honestly. Like, there was so much going on, so many things running through my mind right now of all the things that happened. I guess let's talk about Alex Albon's tank slapper. This is another one where my heart just ripped out of my chest because I was so excited for him. And I thought, wow, maybe he could even he's probably most likely going to get points, if not maybe higher up. But yikes. And also that was a big shunt.
Oh yeah, that looked like it hurt.
Yeah.
He gave a little bit too much on the loud pedal.
Yeah, the loud pedal.
And yeah, put it in the wall. Like you said, it's a bummer having such a great weekend and making it was his mistake. I don't think it was a car issue. I think he just gave it a little bit too much gas and went all the way around. It's a shame, but I'm just glad that he's all right, because not only did he smoke the wall, but then the back end of his car was sitting at a track.
Oh my God.
I just hope that nobody plows it into him.
Such close calls actually there. Nico Hulkenberg inches from Alex Albon's back wing. It was difficult also because they're coming around that blind corner, so they can't see him. Yes. So when the crash happened, he literally almost hit, I think it was Pierre Gasly. Just like Pierre was going past as the car was drifting back out into the track. And then Nico Hulkenberg came right behind. It's a blind corner, so he couldn't even see him. And there was lots of dust up in the air. So if you go back and watch a replay, it's like kind of a miracle no one hit him. But yeah, kudos also to the Melbourne track people, because they did a great job with cleaning all of that up and stuff.
But they did have a red flag.
Yes, and that caused the first red flag of this race. So I was like, okay, let's bunch the pack back up again.
Poor George Russell, literally in the lead of the race.
Oh my God.
Takes Max.
Yeah.
At the start and pits, thinking it's going to be just a safety car.
Right.
I think everybody was.
It was. It was at first.
The red flag came out. I mean, I remember Croft even whoa, red flag. So poor George just lost 7 places, and gets a free pit stop.
I know.
And you could tell. I think George said on the radio, he was like, "Guys, you made the right call."
Yeah.
I don't think anybody thought that was going to be a red flag. I wanted to do it. I just feel bad for him because, obviously what happened to him later in the race, maybe it wouldn't have mattered. But, the guy leading the race, unfortunately, just gets some rough luck, which is kind of the story of George's freaking F1 career.
Yeah.
Tough luck. And,
bad luck. Yeah, just bad luck for him all around in this race with that situation. But then his car literally lighting on fire, which is interesting because we have not seen reliability issues with the Mercedes at all so far this season. Yeah, so I'm wondering that's really interesting what happened there. And again, these cars are so complicated; it could be just a freak situation.
That extra $40 million that they can't spend.
Yeah, so just another race another driver this week that you watched and you were like, man, sorry for that. That really sucked. But honestly though, the racing that we did see from George in this race, phenomenal. Really great off the line at the start. Was able to beat Max Verstappen and get him in that first corner, I think, is where he overtook him. So
Lewis overtook Max 2 corners.
Right, yeah, it was great racing so far. Lewis Hamilton this week too. Sparks of the old Lewis coming back, and I feel like this is very typical with Lewis Hamilton. The moment he gets a whiff of success or good news, we start to see him come alive again a bit. The past interviews, the past couple weeks and races, he's just seemed really down, not okay, even to the point where he was kind of throwing the team under the bus a bit, which we don't ever really see Lewis Hamilton do that much, at least with Mercedes. So was happy to see like good performance from him. And I thought like, to be honest with you, going into this race after qualifying, I was like, okay, good for the Mercedes, but like there's no way they're going to be able to hold on. Like they're probably going to, in my mind, I thought, okay, maybe fourth, fifth at best. So the fact that Lewis Hamilton was on that podium this weekend.
And honestly, if George hadn't had his issue, if he didn't have the bad luck, reliability issues, he would have been right there. But,
right.
Mercedes 2-3.
Yeah. And another thing that surprised me a lot with the Mercedes, mostly with Lewis Hamilton, when he was behind Max Verstappen. Max finally got around him, and I thought, all right, here goes Max. He's going to be 20 seconds ahead of everybody. Like, there's no way this Mercedes doesn't have the pace to, like, keep up with the Red Bull or even stay close. It took Max Verstappen a while to kind of make that bigger gap than I had anticipated. Lewis was staying within 3.5 seconds of Max, I want to say for 10 laps. And I was honestly impressed. Granted, the Mercedes was giving it full beans. And once his tires dropped off, it was game over.
Max was probably on autopilot. He probably knew the pace the Mercedes had. He probably told over the radio, as long as you hit 120 whatever lap time.
Yeah.
You'll keep him at a safe distance. You won't burn your tires up. And then eventually he'll, because he's going full beans, he'll ruin his tires.
Right.
And if it weren't for the red flags, Max wins by 25 seconds, right? Probably.
Yeah. I think before the last red flag, he was about 9-10 seconds ahead. Yeah. But still, I'm still impressed by that. Because we've seen that Red Bull like way farther ahead than that.
But again, I think that, and I can't prove this, but my guess is that it wasn't difficult for Max to keep a pace. That, basically Lewis's all-out pace, Max was able to just consistently put in.
Yeah.
And let the Merc eventually wear its tires down.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It was interesting, but it was, I don't know. What do you think of this? Like, is Mercedes really making these huge leaps and bounds already without a big upgrade package?
I was wondering that too. I don't know if it was track specific or what.
Yeah.
I mean, they're clearly not at Red Bull's level, but like
no one is.
But are they better than Ferrari now? Are they better than Aston Martin?
I mean, they out-qualified both Aston Martins.
But again, that's a single lap pace, right? But I do believe that if George didn't have that bad luck, I think he would have kicked Alonso off. He would have been that other position on the pole.
Yeah.
Whether it was second or third or podium. But I do think that this was maybe more track specific than actual improvement for Mercedes. Obviously we'll just have to find out at Miami. Miami's the next race, right?
No. Baku's the next race.
Okay.
In like a month's time.
That one, I think they're going to struggle because it has the longest straight.
Right.
And they are slow on the straights.
Right. The corners is where they're making up a lot of that, which is surprising because Lewis Hamilton has been complaining about not being able to feel the rear end of his car.
Yeah, but that car always cornered well. That's something that engineers and such, whatever. Yeah, I think it was more track specific. I'm gonna guess that they won't have the same success at Baku, and they might be the fourth fastest car.
Right. Yeah. It was surprising. They were surprised. I was surprised. Yeah. Everyone, I think, was surprised. But overall, I think if you're a Mercedes fan, this is great positivity. If you're able to pull out a result like that without any large upgrades, that's a good sign. So, I mean, they were obviously happy. I was happy to see Lewis on the podium too. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. I mean, he's not my favorite driver, but he's not my least favorite either.
So he has been on the podium for 17 straight seasons, and that's a new record.
Wow, that's kind of crazy. But I'm trying to think of. I remember looking at the race at certain points and being like, "Oh wow, look at him." I think mostly Hulkenberg.
Lando and Oscar.
That was more toward the end of the. No, I was not. Lando and Oscar they just like benefited from a lot of the situations that happened in this race. Yeah, if they didn't have a lot of those things happen, they would have been at the back. Lando Norris was stuck behind Nico Hulkenberg for a long time.
Haas is a better
Yeah.
So.
But I was shocked to see how well Nico Hulkenberg was doing. He was holding his own. Lando Norris was behind him for a good chunk of the race, which helped them out. But good results there. Also, Pierre Gasly, he was working his way up. And at one point, I thought, could we see Pierre Gasly on the podium? At one point in the race, maybe wishful thinking, but he was up there. I think he was top 5, top 4 at one point. In the race. So good pace from the Alpines. And I think that's the first time Pierre Gasly has really been kind of like able to outperform Esteban, like really outperform him. And everybody loves Pierre Gasly. Who doesn't love Pierre Gasly? I want to see him back on the podium. Aston Martins were where I expected them to be, up at the front. I mean, kind of shocked that the Mercedes and Alonso he wasn't able to get past that Mercedes a lot quicker, but I don't know.
No, he wasn't able to pass it at all.
Yeah.
But again, is it track specific? Is it
right? Well, they share the same engine.
Yeah, of course. But that should never happen. That a team that's borrowing your engine shouldn't be beating you. That's embarrassing.
Well, yeah, obviously.
So, the first 2 races were rough in Mercedes' eyes because of that. But,
yeah.
That hopefully that'll change for Mercedes' sake. It seems like it was in this track, but like I said, I'm going to guess it was more track specific.
Yeah. Okay, I feel like now is the time we have to get into the chaos that was the end of this race. I was doing a live during this entire race. So shout out to all the 200 and something people that were watching with me at 3:30 a.m. in the morning. I don't know where to start. Where do we start with this? Like, okay, we had that second red flag come out due to Kevin Magnussen. I think it's a combination of his hard tires being on their last legs and him hitting a bit of turbulence on the side of the track. He went off the track a bit, and basically his back right tire just poop, popped like a balloon, and flew into the air, like really rocketed up. That caused that red flag to come out. And I was like, okay, this is about to get interesting. And also, do I find it a coincidence that we had Verstappen and Lewis 1-2, and we had a red flag with 2 laps to go, and Michael Massey just happened to be in the paddock this weekend? Coincidence? I think not. The man must just bring this energy, this chaos energy to any race, because every race so far hasn't been like just riddled with accidents, explosions, fires, crashes, incidents. And then Michael Massey shows up for a race weekend, and everything I could have thought that could possibly happen during a race happened. I mean, come on. Conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat, whatever you want to call it. Michael Massey is bad luck. I'm saying it here. The man brings bad energy. Anyways, that all started. Then we found out we were going to do, there were technically 2 laps left. One would be done behind the safety car. And then there'd be a standing start. This is where all chaos broke loose. Honestly, I was watching it and I was like, oh, what is happening? What's happening? Like so many things. It just, everyone collided in one big old heap of accidents. I guess the biggest one we need to talk about that took 2 cars out completely, the Alpines.
Yeah, that's rough.
Yikes. Yeah. I felt so bad for Pierre Gasly. That, between him and his teammate, honestly, you can't blame anybody for that, really.
It was maybe a little aggressive from Pierre to cut across the track, but he was significantly further ahead than Esteban, just as he cut across, rear right, hit front left. It almost reminded me of like when Romain Grosjean cut across when he had his awful accident.
Yeah.
It's aggressive, but it's also, from a start, so obviously people are, trying to make moves, trying to be a little bit more aggressive. So, yeah, I don't think anyone's really at fault. It just stinks that, that both Alpines crash out in the last.
Yeah, it just happened. Yeah, and Pierre had re-entered the track at that point. He was also in the midst of avoiding some tussles, some incidents. I honestly just think he didn't see him. Like,
You can't see anything.
no, when you watch it back, I really think he was cutting across to get out of the way of all the craziness, and Esteban just wrong place, wrong time. Really sucks.
I'm sure Esteban's pissed about it, but at the end of the day, he needs to understand, like,
Right.
you know, Pierre's a little bit ahead of you. He's trying to make a move to get some points. And it happens.
Yeah, he didn't Lance Stroll you and just like straight up dive bomb you from the back. Like like I mean, it wasn't intentional. And I saw Pierre Gasly post it and he said like this one hurts. And he had a great race. He really did have a fantastic race. And this crazy, like this is the kind of stuff where I'm like, do we do these standing starts when we're this close to the end of the race?
Oh, absolutely you do, because it's an excitement factor.
I know, but like
It's entertainment. It's all about entertainment.
I know, but like sometimes I look at that and I'm like, oh man, if that didn't happen, Pierre just would have had a really great race. I don't know. Yeah, I feel you. It's entertainment, but
I mean, Alonso got lucky out of all of it. He got spun around.
yeah,
Instead of finishing dead last,
right.
things get red flags after the Alpine crashes, and he starts back in third.
Yeah, so let's talk about that incident because I said we'll come back to the other Ferrari later. This is where we're coming back to the other Ferrari of Carlos Sainz. Carlos overall, I think, had a really great race. He took advantage of all of the safety cars and the red flags and got himself right place, right time. But he tapped Alonso coming in or out of turn one and made Alonso spin off completely. And I think when he re-entered the track, he was in like 14th or something like that. Alonso, yeah. And we had Carlos Sainz in a solid third place at that point. I saw this happen. I didn't think much of it because, again, there was so much other crap going on track. Right. I just was like, that's a racing. It could be a racing incident. Yeah. But then once the race was red flagged again, and this is something I want to talk to you about because I have mixed feelings on this. All the cars were brought back into the pit. Then the FIA was saying, we're not 100% sure how this is going to play out. We'll come back to you. We need to figure this out. We saw a similar situation to this happen, I believe, at Silverstone last year. We had same situation, one more lap to go, incidents into turn one in sector one, and it was deemed that because a certain amount of cars had not completed sector one, that technically that lap didn't count.
And you revert back to the original.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So the craziness at this point was if we were going to go by where everybody ended that restart, it would have been Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, and Nico Hülkenberg, which is kind of crazy to think. It took a while for the FIA to figure this out. A while. Like, personally, longer than I think it should have taken them.
I think they made the right decision, but it just took them too long to make that decision.
Yeah. Again, I feel like this is another case of seeing the FIA being indecisive.
Yeah.
Like, I know, like, there's a lot going on. You need to go back and watch what happened and figure out who was where at what point. I know it's not like a simple, like, snap your fingers, this is the answer. But for it to take that long to figure out, I think it was just way too long, especially when we had one lap to go. I just, at this point, like, as a fan, I was like, all right, just get this over with. Like, I don't want to do another standing start because we're just going to have this whole thing happen all over again. So let's just finish this out. Everyone, I want to say we sat there for like 10, 15 minutes almost, and it was getting to the point. So a race has to be completed within 3 hours of the start time. Okay. They had 45 minutes left of that 3 hours. So they were kind of like, all right. And the sun was setting. It was going to get dark soon. So I kind of was like, all right, speed this up. What you think that if I made the right decision reverting back to the original order?
It's just what the rules say. I mean, you can argue the rule, red flag in P14 and then started the race in P3. But at the end of the day, he was spun around and the FIA decided that it was Carlos's fault.
Okay.
But, again, I'm not going to argue you can argue the rule, but if that is the rule, then they made the right decision.
So this is my second argument / question. After it was announced how they were going to restart the race, it is then announced that Carlos Sainz has received a 5-second time penalty for basically punting Alonso off the track. Why is he getting a penalty for a lap that you're now saying never existed?
And that's the joke of it.
Right.
Well, first off, in my opinion, it's not Carlos's fault from the beginning. I don't think Carlos did anything to egregiously ruin Alonso's race.
Right, it wasn't
Alonso
malicious.
Went around the outside, and guess what? That happens when you try and look at what happened to Charles in lap 1. It was the same spot. That is the nature of being aggressive on a start. And yes, cars bump into each other. So from there, they deemed that it wasn't an incident between Carlos and Lance, and it was a little bit different, but still, to me, at the end of the day,
Carlos and Alonso. Yeah.
No, I'm saying Charles and Lance.
Oh.
At the beginning, but I'm saying that the second incident, it's very similar, but for some reason they deemed to give Carlos a penalty, disregarding the fact that the FIA just acknowledged that lap didn't count.
Right.
If that's the case, that should not.
Exactly.
That penalty should not exist.
And that incident no longer has affected Alonso's race.
Right. Anybody's race.
Right.
Because literally everybody's in the same position.
Exactly.
So why is Carlos getting a penalty for a lap that, in the FIA's eyes, never happened?
Yeah. And I think that's so unfair. And I know Carlos Sainz was heated. I heard his radio when they told him sitting there that he had a 5-second. He literally was pleading it sucked. And then I saw his pre-race. He said he's too angry to talk about it.
It was a terrible call.
It was a horrible call.
This is what the FIA does. They are very, very good at making terrible decisions because they deem it entertaining.
Right.
And this is why they're the worst.
Right, but it's just logic.
They'll very quickly make a decision to ban people from climbing a fence when your driver's coming to win, but then they'll take 15 minutes to decide that a lap doesn't count, but we're still going to penalize a guy for just doing something on that lap that didn't count.
Right.
This is the FIA. This is what you deal with when you watch F1.
Right.
They're a joke of an organization that values entertainment over fair rules,
law.
Yeah, exactly.
Law and order, they don't believe in it.
Well, they believe that they're, this authoritarian, Maoist entity where
the evil empire.
Yeah, exactly. But then it takes them 15 minutes to make a decision on track. This is the frustrating thing of F1. Is it's such an entertaining sport. There's so much going for it, and then we have this entity that just ruins everything.
I think to me too, it pissed me off because of the Carlos situation. That to me, just common sense wise, didn't make any sense. But then also, this is where I think things and I mentioned why I feel bad for Pierre and the Alpine is that's part, like you mentioned, restarting like that, or in a start in general in Formula One, that is part of racing. Your ability to maneuver around a lot of those incidents or to make it out basically alive. I hate to say that, but to make it out and continue the race. And then we're going to go ahead and just pretend that didn't happen. But all the teams that got affected by that, the Alpines, if they didn't get hit or were in any of those incidents, they would have been in a great place for that restart and they would have finished with points. But they took each other out by no fault of their own. And now they're not going to benefit from that. It's just it doesn't make any sense. I feel like if there are cars like that have been taken out of places and you're going to revert back to the original grid, I don't think that's fair. I just don't because the teams, right, there are teams that could have benefited from that, but because of all the chaos that just went on and their cars out, they're now not going to benefit from that. And I feel like that needs to be figured out because I don't know.
If that's the case,
doesn't seem fair.
If that's the case and the restart would have reflected what the standings were when the two Alpines crashed, which I think there's a fair argument to be made.
I think so. Yeah.
If that's the case, then it makes more sense to penalize Carlos because Alonso's now P14.
Well, yeah, because right.
But again, that wasn't the scenario. So why is Carlos penalized for a lap that FIA just deemed
right?
Happened? So, like for me, if they were to change that rule, then it would have made sense to penalize Carlos. Again, I don't think he was at fault.
Yeah.
Whatever. That's a I thought it was a racing incident. They deemed it as his fault.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's not the rule. But they still chose to penalize Carlos, and that's the buffoonery that is FIA.
Yeah. I know. It just like, and I know a lot of this stuff isn't very black and white. Like we're sitting here acting like it could be very black and white. And I think sitting from the outside, it's easy to say that as fans sometimes.
I don't think so. I think, like we just said, they had 15 minutes to decide the outcome. They have hindsight in that scenario to be able to make a decision. It's not that hard.
Right.
It really isn't. And again, I think they made the right decision based on the rule book of reverting back to the original.
Right. I mean, if those are the rules, those are the rules.
Exactly. And then, like I said, we can argue whether or not that should be the rule. But the bigger issue is them penalizing Carlos for a
right. Yeah.
That's much more stupid than, should this be a rule? Shouldn't this be a rule? There's room for debate there. To me, there's no room for debate on whether or not Carlos should get a penalty for this.
Yeah. It's just like you're saying you're turning back time. You're going back to what it was, but except for this one person. We're not going to turn back time for them. It's just like, yeah. It's so complicated. It's just a mess. And like, I feel bad for Carlos. I agree. I think we both agree, like we've said. If that was the case, they're reverting back to the old grid. He shouldn't be penalized. It should follow suit with everybody. But that was painful and just like hurt him. Like what? He was about to finish 4th if that would have been the case. And he ended up finishing 12th. Yeah. And because of all the DNFs. Like the amount of DNFs also in this race was insane. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 like DNF due to technical issues or like you got punted off the track. Just it's crazy. It's just insane. We have to mention too Oscar Piastri getting his first points. If there's a team that benefited the most from this race, it was McLaren.
Oh yeah. Right place, right time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
As terrible as the start of their season's been, they needed that. Like both of those cars should not have scored points.
No.
But they just happened to not get into an accident with the Alpines and gain 2 free places.
Right.
They need that for their egos right now.
Yeah.
So, I hope that kind of helps them turn the corner.
Yeah.
It's not good for F1 for McLaren to be a bottom feeder.
No.
There's a ton of papaya fans, and this is like they need to be competing for points.
Right. And McLaren is another iconic team within Formula One. That's had great success in the past. So, yeah, Lando Norris finished 6th, Piastri in 8th. So, great for him. Good result for his first home race. There was a lot of cheering for him, which I was happy to see. I was a little worried if Daniel Ricciardo's presence may eclipse him, but it seemed like the crowd was very much there. Yeah, that's true. But I was happy to see all the support they gave him. And like we said, he is very much a hometown boy. He's from Melbourne. So, I'm just looking at like where everyone finished because again, Yuki Tsunoda scored points.
Again, inherited a point. I don't think the AlphaTauris were great. I think DeVries DNF.
But that's his first
point because of 2 cars crashing.
Right. But Yuki had some great moves during this race. I remember he overtook Piastri, I believe. And this is, I think, what Yuki is really known for is this kind of like really ballsy. Yes, he sends it. He had some really great moves. So overall, he benefited from a lot of the chaos, but the first points this year for him, so it's good for him. I'm looking again. Guan Yu Zhou, 9th, and Bottas was 11th. So that's great points for him. And he's been outperforming Valtteri Bottas this year so far. Yeah, so maybe those are good things to come from Guan Yu Zhou. Just real quick, though, we haven't really talked much about Checo Perez. Yeah. Obviously, started at the back. P20 to P5. Right? Yeah. Wasn't super impressed, though. Yeah, but a lot of those places were given to him due to the chaos at the end. If that was Max Verstappen at the back of that grid, he would have been farther up.
Again, not to beat dead horse, Max is a much better driver than Checo.
Right.
We talked about this.
But we know the speed in that Red Bull.
Yeah, but even Checo said at the beginning of the race, like, Albert Park isn't super overtake heavy. Like, yes, they have 4 DRS zones because it's not very overtake
Right,
heavy.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out ways to do it. And yes, when you have a car that the Red Bull is, where they can gain like 30 kilometers an hour with DRS open, like, that's a huge benefit. So, because I remember thinking the same thing when Checo was like, it's going to be tough. And I was like, well, didn't they just talk about how Red Bull has a huge advantage with DRS? Like, for some reason, their rear wing, that gives them an extra, like, 10 kilometers an hour compared to every other team.
Yeah, I think Lewis Hamilton was talking about that.
So when I heard Checo say that, I was like, I thought that those DRS zones he'd be able to fly through, but yeah, he wasn't able to. Like you said, if it was Max, probably.
There were definitely some times where I saw him on the track during the race, and I was like, dude, get it done. Yeah. Like, holy smokes, I feel like you should be moving.
He's never been the most aggressive guy, right? He's the tire whisperer, right?
Yeah.
But he's never a guy that can just send it left and right. You know, he's more of a conservative driver that will take advantage of other people's mistakes. And,
but he is a king of street circuits. This is a street circuit.
Is it though? Is it a half street circuit?
It reminds me very much of Canada, where but Canada isn't a street circuit, but like it's in a park. Yeah. So those roads are used for like park traffic, not like a main road.
That's a half street circuit.
Yeah.
Next week or next race, that's a street circuit.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really. I'm sure people call it outer park street circuit. To me, it's not.
Yeah. So I mean, not crazy impressive driving from Checo, but is what it is. He in 5th.
Saying somebody going from P20 to P5 is not impressive.
Not in that car.
That's my point. My point is that, like, that's how good that car is.
Yeah.
We're going to sit here and say, that not that great of a race, gaining 15 positions.
That's why I always laugh when Christian Horner, like when stuff like this happens, when the Red Bulls are toward the back of the grid or mid of the pack to start the race. And they're like, oh, how do you think, where do you think you're going to land first? And then he's always like, well, I mean, we're really far back there. I'll even be shocked if we're on the podium. And I'm like, oh my God, will you shut up? Like, you're going to be on the podium. Stop pretending to be so humble. Just like come out with it. Like, you're never humble 95% of the time. Yeah.
He's the king at that.
Yeah.
He is a clown.
He is a bit of a clown. Anyways, crazy race. I feel like I need to go back and watch it again because so much happened. But overall, we love a good.
I was going to say entertainment value was 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
It was a great race.
Absolutely.
Of course, the FIA decides to ruin things. There's tons of issues with, and poor Charles getting punted. There were some rough aspects, but just on an entertainment level,
fantastic.
Australia needs to stay on the calendar.
Thank you, Australia. The only thing that sucks about it is staying up super late. Yes. That's fine. It's all good.
Make it a night race. Put lights there. Come on.
Yeah, come on, guys. That would make the most sense. Also, if you're an Australian fan, God bless you, you freaking saints.
You guys are like, you ever see that meme of Mel Gibson talking to Jesus?
Yeah.
The Passion.
Yeah.
And the meme is like, you being a martyr, but like Jesus is literally
right.
That is us to the
Australians. Yeah, seriously. You guys are the real MVPs of Formula One fans, and we salute you.
Yes.
Really quick, because we have such a big break, for a reminder, it would have been the Chinese Grand Prix between here and Baku, but obviously that got canceled. So we've got a 3-week break, basically a month between now and the race. It's like a little mini summer break, spring break for Formula One. So I just really want to go over quickly the top 3 in the constructors and the drivers standings, just, We're a couple races in now. We've got Red Bull in first, obviously, 123 points. Aston Martin in second with 65 points. So, wow, what a gap between the two of them. And then Mercedes in third with 56 points. That's for constructors. And then for drivers standings, obviously Max Verstappen in first with 69 points. Sergio Perez in second with 54 and Fernando Alonso in third with 45. So those are your top three currently sitting right now after the Australian Grand Prix. Nope, definitely not. No. And yeah, just interesting. It'll be interesting. Oh my God. Are you trying to just make me cry right now? Really? Seriously, all the Charles Leclerc fans, I feel for you. Oh, here we go again. Go ahead. Say it.
Every week I'll rail at this point until Charles hears me and he's like, you know what? Mr. F1 is right.
Oh, yeah.
Ferrari and I'm moving to Red Bull.
Yeah, I'm totally waiting for the day that he says that in a press
When
conference.
He does, call me out, Charles.
Oh my God.
And be like, I heard Mr. F1 and he's right.
All right, let's wrap things up with our fans' favorite segments. We've got Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week. Meme of the Week. I feel like we need to come up with a song.
Should we get like a little like theme music?
Yeah, make a little ditty, if you will. Meme of the Week.
Meme of the week. Meme of the week is going to be here, there.
It's on our...
Right there.
Check it out on YouTube, guys. The video.
Right there. And it is a very funny dig. If you like making fun of French people, which I like to do, you'll like it. It refers to the ongoing constant striking that happens in F1.
No, in France, not in F1.
In F1 too.
If you don't know this, the French like to strike a lot, and they currently are like going crazy striking now.
Right.
And
yeah, somebody made a funny joke about the French cars
Kim,
similar to the French people.
Yeah.
Not doing anything.
Yeah, it was definitely a good one. It was funny. Yeah. Admin of the week. No, admin awards. Sorry. We really need to get this down. Admin award for this week is strictly just going to Red Bull for the Daniel Ricciardo content. We all wanted to see it. We missed him. We love him. He was on all of their social platforms, and they utilized him for all their social media posts, almost.
I would like to do like an honorable mention.
Okay,
Admin.
you've gone on.
This was last week.
Okay.
When George had to give up the trophy and give it to Alonso.
Oh yeah.
They did like
Oh my God.
they did a ton of videos and like content for like George dropping the trophy off.
Yeah.
To Aston Martin, and I was like, they actually have like a sense of humor about this. I was a little surprised by that. I thought Mercedes would be like, no, this is our
Yeah.
place. Yeah, but they actually had like a good sense of humor. Like, oh my God, this is anti-German.
You're right. They did. They made like a big joke out of it. And I think it's because for the teams, it was so comical, like the insanity of like running this trophy back and forth and not really knowing whose trophy it was at a certain point.
Not to mention, isn't Aston Martin's factory like
I mean, they're all in Milton Keynes. I mean, they're all close by. So yeah, we'll give an honorable mention to Mercedes for that.
for having a sense of humor.
Yeah.
Good job, Germans.
Good job.
That is what a sense of humor is.
But the winner for admin award this week is Red Bull.
Yes.
Thank you for all the Daniel Ricciardo content, all the DR3 fans. Thank you. We all needed that big smile back on our screens. Enchanté. And they gave it to us. Danny Rick, we love you. All right, that's it for this week. We will be bringing you more content during this mini spring break.
Hopefully some cool, crazy stuff happens, and we'll be able to fill some airtime with some entertaining things.
Yeah.
Maybe Charles will listen to me and jump to Red Bull.
Who knows? Guys, who knows what'll happen in this little lull of no F1, but make sure to stick around. As always, subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss a single episode. You can check us out on anywhere you get your podcasts, basically, and leave us a 5-star review. If you really love the show, we would much appreciate it. And also, we love to hear your thoughts. YouTube, check us out there. All these podcasts have a video component to them. Mr. and Mrs. F1 podcast. And then on social media, Mr. and Mrs. F1 pod. Oh, that was a lot. That was a lot.
All right.
Thanks for sticking with us, guys. Adios.
See you in Baku.
See you. Well, not in Baku. They'll see us before then.
Sure.
All right. Bye, guys.